Hi, I'm Robin Schultz with the Hoover Channel. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you'll always know when we have a new video coming up.
Beginning with item 3, resolution approving the license for Hoover Hospitality. Ms. Dickinson.
There are no issues with this request from the police department or from the zoning department. And that's for the following 2 alcohol licenses, also at 1769 Montgomery Highway and the region's tradition golf tournament.
Okay. Any questions from my 2 colleagues? I've got a question just about actually 3 and 4. Were these, they were already in business of alcohol, so were these renewals or what are they?
That's correct. If there's any changes in that, it will be, they have to go back through. The new owners have to go back through.
Okay.
Or if there's a change where they take one off.
All right. Any other questions on this, please? Item 6 is an alcohol license for 5-star concession for the regional tradition golf tournament.
Yes, there are no issues with that request from the police department or from the zoning department.
Any questions for that item? Item 7, reappoints members to the CDA.
Yes, this is to reappoint Scott Underwood, who is the chair, Beth Quantity, and also Christopher Washington. Beth is the vice chair, and then Christopher Washington was filling an unexpired term, so this is actually to appoint him for a full term.
These are reappointments. Any questions on those 2 items? Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Okay, it's a resolution requesting reconsideration and correction of recent change for the MSA designations.
Okay, this is a change where the Birmingham Hoover metropolitan area, the Hoover part of that was removed, and this is to request reconsideration and correction of that change and add Hoover back into that Birmingham Hoover metro area.
Questions on that resolution? Item 9, Ms. Cobalt is here, and authorizing the mayor to execute a one-time equipment incentive for Verizon.
Yes, sir. We're about to begin our project to install security cameras at various parks. This will be our first phase. And with that, this equipment incentive credit agreement with Verizon, when we purchase the equipment, we receive a credit on our service. And that is like a 36-month agreement. So.
Now, the documents aren't working. What kind of credit are we talking about?
It'll be about 50%. So the yearly expense is about $16,000. So we'll pay about half of that throughout the 3 years.
Any questions, Ms. Cobalt? Item 10, Ms. Henson. It's a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an internship affiliation agreement with the University of South Alabama. I think we've done this before though, right? Summer intern,
Yes. There's no monetary compensation.
relay. Any questions, Ms. Henson? Very good. Ms. Walker is here to talk to us about item 11, authorizing the mayor to execute a direct primary agreement with One Life Health.
Good evening. As we all are aware, we receive services for our employees from Pareto Health. That is now One Medical. Well, One Medical has now been purchased by Amazon. And with that being said, a new agreement is required to be signed. It's been reviewed by our legal team to ensure the integrity of the contract and services are the same. So in essence, we just need to sign it in order to, yeah.
Any questions, Ms. Walker? Thank you. Mr. Miller is here for 12 and 13. Item 12, authorizing the mayor to accept and execute proposal of training events.
Yes, sir. This is a sole source proposal for this particular train system for the library. We have the sole source letter, which should be in your packets. The proposal is in the amount of $476,000, and this item was budgeted in the fiscal year 24 and 25 budgets under the HVAC modernization for the Hoover Library account.
You also have 13, rejecting all bids and authorizing bid invitation to be reissued for a Hoover Extra Loop.
Yes, sir. This project involves a special type of roofing system. The bid specs were drawn up to require specific products from the certain manufacturers or pre-approved equipment. Specific warranty requirements were also included in the bid specs, which also included or allowed for the disqualification of bidders who either did not meet the warranty certification requirements or failed to submit the warranty certification with the bid proposal. Though these requirements were discussed in the previous meeting, a significant amount of confusion persisted among the participating bidders, which was evidenced in wide variability, variability, in bid proposals. After careful review of the bid submissions, it's been determined that it would be prudent to reject all bids, clarify the bid specifications and requirements, and rebid this project. I will note that we are already working on clarifying the bid specifications, so we should have a quick turnaround to rebid this.
Any questions for Mr. Miller? I'm sorry, Derrick.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Reeves, item 14. Agreement with AlDOT, the supplemental agreement for Belleville Road, Belleville Mill.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Lyda. And this item was continued from the last meeting for us to work on the funding for this project. And I think we've come up with a proposal that we feel comfortable with. It's just, I hope y'all feel comfortable with it. So again, this is an agreement for the construction, and I'll touch base on it. I went over it last time, but just in case someone wasn't here. It is a revised construction utility agreement with AlDOT for what we call the Big Valley widening project. That project extends from just west of Caldwell Mill to Emerson Center Drive. The total cost for the utility relocation and both phases of construction, based on the estimates provided to us from AlDOT, is $55 million. So that has grown significantly since the last estimate we got in 2011. Our estimated project schedule, utility phase, we anticipate starting as soon as this agreement is executed. In 2025, we anticipate it taking 3 years. The total cost for that is $10 million. Phase 1 construction is 2028 to 2031. That cost is $25 million. And the phase 2 construction is 2031 to 2034. So we have a time gap in there between the construction and the utility phases. So they're spread out, and that's going to help us with our funding proposal that we're presenting to you. We have been working with Shelby County. They did issue an MOU to the city in 2011, and they were capped at $1 million toward their contribution. We've been working with them, and since they realized that we needed help mitigating these increased construction costs. So at their last meeting last week, the Shelby County Commission did increase their $1 million contribution to $5.5 million. So they're basically covering 10% of our 20% match. So with that, we currently have $3.7 million budgeted for this project. We still have some right-of-way costs and some other engineering costs that we'll have to incur before we get to construction. With that being said, we'll have $2.5 million that we still will need to fund for this project. So we propose to budget $500,000 a year from our gas taxes, starting this next fiscal year for the next 5 years to cover those that $2.5 million needed to complete this agreement. We don't expect any additional funding requirements for this project, and we don't expect the gas tax money, $500,000 a year, to really be a detriment to our resurfacing program or affect our roadway network at all.
Questions for Mr. Reeves?
Just to comment, Mr. Reeves, I want to thank you for providing and informing the council on the funding mechanism for this moving forward, and also Shelby County for just being a great partner as they've always been. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just one question. Okay. I can talk loud, right? So, just so I'll be clear for informational purposes, Jennifer, I think was it 2019, maybe, that the governor increased the gas tax associated with, it was something like that, just whenever you, I'm putting on the spot with all these numbers, but you can only utilize gas tax for what, just for the purpose of the audience?
The public roads, right?
Yes, sir, basically.
So it's already earmarked, so, and I think it was increased over some years, I think it's locked out now, so we'll be perfectly fine.
Yes, sir.
We have are there three gas tax funds?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have three special revenue gas tax funds, and combined, they bring in around $4 million of a revenue stream to the city. And the engineering team is very good about planning the repay, using those funds to repay city streets.
Perfect.
And so use of the $500,000, the city can still maintain its regular plans to resurface those streets according to the plan, right?
Yes, ma'am.
With this commitment.
And you can put lights in there as well too, as long as it's a part of it.
Yes, sir. The different gas taxes have different requirements.
Yes, okay.
One of them will allow you to utilize it for lights. They're very specific on what you can use those funds for.
All right, thank you, Councilman Middlebrooks, for wanting to kind of table it until we get more information for transparency purposes.
I think the benefit too is that nothing comes out of the general fund to
Yes.
be able to fund that funding agreement, which is good. And that's a testimony to Mr. Reeves' relationship with
Yes.
Shelby County and reaching out with that ask. So
Thank
he
you.
saved us a lot of money.
Exactly. Well, that's a handicap when you save money.
I'm going home.
I think now you need to extend some money.
That's right.
Item 15, authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Level 3 Communications.
Yes, sir, and this is another outbound project. This was related to the Little Vanadel project. The purpose of this is request authorization to sign a non-reimbursable agreement with Level 3 utilities for relocation of their utilities associated with the project. There are no city funds involved with this.
Very good. Any questions on item 15? Item 16 is a resolution accepting a grant from the Regional Planning Commission, the acceptance of an Apple grant to conduct a Warner Road corridor study.
Yes, sir, and we have been selected by the RPC for an Apple grant. Apple actually stands for Advanced Planning Program and Logical Engineering. So this study will evaluate the safety needs for, I know y'all are aware of the pedestrian conflicts and stuff, issues we have on Lorna Road, especially this study will focus from Chapel Hill Road down to US Highway 31. The cost of this study is $75,950. RPC will select the consultant. They will pay 80% of that, and we will pay the remaining $15,000 for that. And the money for this study is currently budgeted.
Any questions for Mr. Reeves on the study? 17, authorize the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding with Shelby County.
And yes, sir, this is just clarifying the changes in the funding agreement with Shelby County, outlining their commitment to the $5.5 million toward this project.
Question on that. Item 18 authorizes the execution of a temporary construction easement with Shelby County for Belleville Road.
This request is to donate a temporary construction easement located on city property at 400 Jaguar Drive, or Veterans Park. The temporary construction easement is .014 acres.
Any questions? All right, 19, Mr. Reeves, is authorizing the mayor to execute a permit with AlDOT for installation, operation, and maintenance of new traffic signals.
Yes, sir. This is for a new traffic signal to be installed at Alabama Highway 150 and Everly Parkway or Lake Cyrus Boulevard. This is being funded and installed by the developer of Everly, so there are no city funds involved in this. AlDOT just requires the city to sign these permits, and they will also require us to take over maintenance of this once it's installed.
Questions, Mr. Reeves? you. Get a break. Fountain is here representing HPD for a resolution declaring certain personal property is no longer needed and surplus it. Mr. Fountain.
Yes, sir, that's an X-ray machine. Well, good evening, first off. That's an X-ray machine that we bought in 2016 for interdiction, and it's no longer supported. You can't get parts for it. So we want to do it, declare it surplus, and then we're going to turn around and trade it in on the UN. So no money exchanged.
Is this the one at the jail?
Huh?
Is this the one at the jail?
No, sir. This is the one the interdiction guys have that X-ray cars.
Oh, okay. Very good. Any questions on that?
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Fountain, and Mrs. Cornett, resolution accepting award from DHS and Lyda, and then the budget and such.
Yes, so the next three items relate to Aaliyah grant awards that the police department applied for. In every case, these awarded grants do not require a match from the city, so these are 100% funded by the grants themselves. So these are, so the first one has to do with dive team gear. Do you want to describe what that is? Or is that descriptive enough?
But it's divers, regulators, it's all kinds of equipment that we haven't purchased for them in years. So we're updating all of their gear, and it comes out to be $67,368 for the team.
Any questions on the dive gear?
So that budget amendment request will amend the revenue related to the grant funds and provide for the expenditure for the dive team gear.
Any questions on that item? Item 22 is accepting an award from DHS Aaliyah and amending the budget. So
Yes, so this is another kind of 100% funded grant. This one is for cameras. Yes.
Correct.
Okay, you want to talk about those?
This is for the cameras that we're using on the roadways. So
100% funded, amending the revenue budget and the expense budget to be able to purchase those cameras in the grants fund.
any questions on 22? Finally, 23, authorizing or accepting an award from DHS Aaliyah to amend the budget for ammunition.
Is that how you say that?
Simulations.
I'm glad you said that.
But I've never seen that. I think I know what it means, but
So what that is equate to paintballs or paintball guns. It's ammunition that we use with our real weapons, but you have to buy stuff to convert it so we can use them. It's the ammunition rounds themselves plus the stuff used to convert the weapons to ammunition, pistols and rifles.
So again, 100% funded by the grant, and the budget amendment is amending the revenue related to the grant for $61,225, and also the related expenditures for that.
any questions about it?
I do want to commend our police department for always looking for different grant opportunities, because I think, at least, I haven't been here that long, but for the years that I've been here, I think you've had Homeland Security grants granted both years, maybe you had them before too, so.
We're working, we're trying to find alternative funding sources to pay for this stuff.
Great job.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, thank you.
That is the end of the consent, which will move to the regular agenda, beginning with 24, accepting a grant from Jefferson County Commission and amending the budget for improvements at Russet Woods Park.
Yeah, so this is a grant given by the Jefferson County Commissioner, Jimmy Stevens, related to the Russet Woods project, am I speaking correctly? And this 100% funds that project. So this is a request to execute the documents to accept the grant, and also a related budget amendment to provide for the incoming revenue and the expenditure related to that project.
Any questions on that?
Just for clarification, what's included in phase 2?
I'll let Aaron speak to the specifics of that project. And look here.
Sure, we were excited to do phase 1 of the project just a few months ago. Have that completed as you'll, well, I don't know, you can't see on here. But there is an upper portion to the park and it's got the playground structures. And so we're going to tie those together better with the poured-in-place surface. And one of the things that they asked for in phase 1 were some swings. So we want to add some swings and just have better accessibility to that area and refresh it and renovate it to where it's another good, enjoyable place to gather.
That's been quite a transformative project out there, and I know the neighborhood's incredibly grateful to have it this long and further improvement.
Well, and I'll say too, our Parks and Rec group has also been good about trying to secure outside funding for different projects within the city, so thank you for your efforts with that.
Any other comments or questions? Item 25, amends the city's budget for fiscal year ending September 30, 2024 regarding general obligation warrants for 2023.
Yes, if a clerk would show the one pager that we're referring to related to the next 3 resolutions, I think it might be helpful as we discuss the nature of these items. So first of all, on behalf of the city's leadership team, I just want to thank everybody who has made time to sit down and hear in advance about this proposal that we have related to the uses of the general obligation warrant 2023 funds. Our overarching goal with this strategy that's going to be unveiled over the next 3 resolutions that you're going to hear about is to comply with the IRS spending regulations related to tax-free borrowings, while at the same time providing some funding for critical projects related to sewer, and then preserving as much as possible for a future performing arts center in the city. So the next 3 items are linked to one another, and the items 2 and 3 that follow after this one are going to be dependent on this one. Okay, so this very first item, which is a budget amendment related to the general obligation warrants fund. So as we're looking at this one page right here, we have 4 columns. Those columns are an attempt to show the distinct different buckets, if you will, of city dollars. So the General Obligation 2023 Improvements Fund is a special fund that is created to account for the proceeds from the bond issue that happened in 2023. And that's for capital projects, okay, but distinctly different from our regular capital projects fund, which is at council's discretion, whatever projects council deems are important and wants to approve, right? So the IRS doesn't have a lot to say about our capital projects fund, but has a lot to say about how the administration of funds that come from tax-free bond issues. So that was the goal of this illustration. Okay, so this very first amendment for the GOW 2023 improvement funds is related to the tax-free issue for $93 million that provided funding for certain capital projects in the city. Specific projects that were identified in 2023 were $15 million for the Hoover Met, $61 million for the Exit 9 interchange, and $17 million for Performing Arts Center. The IRS regulations related to tax-free bond issues require the issuer, which is us, to have a reasonable expectation to expend those bond funds within a 36-month window after the bonds are issued. Since we are now in the final year of the 3-year window, and the city does not have design plans or a location yet identified for the PAC, it's no longer reasonable for us to expect to spend the funds budgeted for the PAC within that time frame. As a result, and with the guidance of our bond counsel, we have been able to formulate a proactive strategy that allows us to shift certain qualifying expenditures, capital expenditures, that have already been made out of our capital projects fund over the past 18 months, and then to allocate those expenditures to the bond proceeds. This plan meets the spending timeline requirements of the bond funds for the $17 million that was budgeted for the PAC, but also permits the flexibility for council to approve other projects out of the capital projects fund that are not subjected to those spending timeline requirements. So this resolution would approve a budget amendment to allow for other qualifying capital projects to be paid from the GOW 2023 bond proceeds. As you can see here, we're reducing the budget that was allocated. I used the wrong word. We're reducing the budget that was set aside for the PAC, and then adjusting, adding the budget. Whoops, go back to the other one. Sorry, Wendy. Previous one. That's yeah, I know I'm talking a long time about this first one, but you gotta set it all up. Right, so we're reducing the commitment to the PAC out of these bond funds and increasing a commitment to other qualified capital expenditures. You're going to see separate agenda items to follow that will address the budget requests in the city's capital fund related to sewer critical needs and to the establishment of a performing arts center, as well as the allocation of capital expenditures from FY24 to the bond proceeds. So this is the first request, is to remove the budget associated with the PAC and the bond funds and make budget available for other qualifying capital projects out of those bond funds. Do you want me to talk about the other resolutions?
Yes, let's go, because they're all
All at the same time?
related. Yeah, let's go ahead and take them all at the
Okay,
same time.
sure.
We'll explain them, then we'll just ask questions
Okay, that's good.
regarding the whole.
Okay, so the next two resolutions depend on the outcome of the first, right? Because if you don't want to do that, then we can't do items 2 and 3. But assuming that council would approve that plan of changing the budget amounts in the bond fund, that would relieve $17 million and make $17 million available to assign to other capital needs. At this time, there's 2 big needs that we see, that our team sees. One has to do with some sewer critical items that Blake is going to come and talk to you about now. And then our plan would be to budget the remainder of those $17 million to a performing arts center out of the capital projects fund.
All right, so this is the first piece in the story that we're looking at. So or I guess the second piece of the story that we're looking at. This is the 6.1 for the what we're calling critical capital wastewater treatment facility improvements. So over the last several years, we've made many repairs to the wastewater treatment facilities to keep them running both efficiently and economically. Our city staff and our consultant, Clearwater Solutions, has identified the $6.1 million in critical capital needs to those treatment facilities. If there were any way that we could continue to make these repairs, we would do so. That's what we have done previously. Unfortunately, we're to the point where these critical items have reached the end of their useful lifespan and need to be replaced. Normally, this would have come at a mid-year budget amendment or as a fiscal year budget request. But due to the critical nature of these items and due to some of these items having a long lead time for installation, we're coming to you now with this request. While we fully understand that this is a large dollar figure, this should not come as a large surprise to anyone in the council. These capital expenditures relate to assets that are owned by the city that must be maintained by the city 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These items are part of the long-term capital expenditure plan for our wastewater treatment facilities that have been presented previously. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason Welch, who can go into some of the details on which items we're looking at to come up with our $6.1 million figure.
Good afternoon. As Blake said, the $6.1 million critical needs of the Hoover sewer Sanitary sewer facilities are becoming increasingly urgent due to the aging infrastructure and the stress placed on it by operational and climate-related factors. Our system, which was constructed many decades ago, is slowly deteriorating. This deterioration has led to a rise in blockage, leaks, breaks, and repair issues that pose significant risk to the public health and the environment. Now, despite our best effort and our vigorous maintenance program, the wear and tear on the systems are taking a toll. Our team has done everything in their powers to keep the system functioning to prevent any major environmental concerns. However, the reality is that much of the equipment has now reached its end of useful lifespan. Spare parts are becoming hard to find, which is another challenge we are facing. So the items I'm bringing forward for your consideration are essential components for maintaining the city's sanitary sewer system. These investments are critical for ensuring the continued protection of public health, safeguarding the environment, and fostering the long-term sustainability of our infrastructure. Now we're at a critical junction, and your supporting funding and approving these upgrades will help us avoid more serious and costly disruptions down the line. I ask you to consider the immediate needs of these improvements, which are essential not only to our community's well-being, but also to a broader goal of ensuring our infrastructure remain resilient in the face of ongoing environmental challenges. I don't think she has a slide up there, but I think item 1, just to kind of give you small details, not to bore you with it, because I know sewer is not really a sexy topic, and we are. But item 1 is River Chase Triplex Pump Station. The last major upgrade to this station was done in 2007. It's the hub that I call for the system. There's a total of 13 pump stations that pumps flows directly into this here station here. What has happened over the years, just the corrosion from the sewer gases from the force main is eating into the pipe in there, which is causing issues with our pumps. And it's a 85 horsepower pump station that pumps pretty much 24 hours a day. And we're down to two pumps now with a backup dry perm unit. What we're talking about is the environmental effect of that. If we don't get these here pipes replaced, we risk losing that station, which is the hub that's pumping everything in at least 75% of the River Chase Basin to the plant. So that's the important need for having this here rehab done at this here station. I think item number 2 on that list is one that was already brought to the council once before for consideration. Unfortunately, due to some other needs, that money was spent. So we're now asking for that money back to perform this project. And what it is just a line relocation at the River Chase number 6 pump station. There's a manhole that is exposed on the Cahaba River that we're trying to relocate out of that bin and reconstruct that roadway for the safety of not only the golfers in that area, but for our station there. And I think items 3 through 8 are just equipment needs for different facilities within this River Chase and this station.
On those 3 items?
Yes.
Questions, Mr. Welch, on the 8 items for the sewer, we can take those. I know you guys have had that list for the last several days. Any questions for Mr. Welch?
Just, can you touch briefly on the environmental or health aspect of it? If one of these items failed, the line that we're replacing hole number 6 fails.
Yes, so let's take River Chase number 1 pump station, which, like I said, is the hub. So you're looking at millions gallons per day that if that line goes, then we're discharging raw sewage. I think it drains into River Chase Lake before it hits the Cahaba River. And River Chase number 6, the line relocation, that manhole is located on Cahaba River. And I think there's 4 stations that pumps to pump station number 6 there. So all that sewage from those stations will eventually dump into the Cahaba River there. So that's the environmental concern there.
Any questions for almost 8 sewer items, Mr. Murphy?
And just for a point of reference, the Cahaba River system is protected as multiple endangered species. That's a system. ADEM considers if you bring in any foreign contaminants in the system and fish kill occurs, certain protocol you gotta follow for that. So the Cahaba River system starts somewhere trustful, and it travels parallel to Little Cahaba all the way to Alabama River. So it's just, that's a very sensitive system, just to be real clear.
Okay, so that was the sewer critical needs piece of the budget amendment here. The other part of this budget amendment is taking what is remaining after paying for the sewer critical needs and earmarking it for a performing arts center out of our normal capital projects fund. And the advantage of this is allowing us to continue to retain some funding for the Performing Arts Center that is not attached to spending timeline restrictions. Okay, and then the third, that was a really long one and two. The third one is pretty easy. The third resolution has to do with the technical allocation of actual expenditures to allow the city to draw down funds from our paying agent, right? So when you allocate expenditures to a bond fund, the expenditures have to have happened first. You've got to do them within that 18-month window. So this resolution is requesting the, I'm trying to find my notes, but I've lost my place here. Is requesting, maybe I do. It is requesting the drawdown for those expenditures that happened in fiscal year 24. This will be a formal thing that we need to do every year. The reason why we don't want to do the allocation and the drawdown as they happen is because it costs $500 every time you do it. So it makes a lot of sense every year to tabulate all those expenditures that you've incurred and then submit them to your paying agent so that you can draw down the funds. And so that's kind of the general plan that we would like to do. We'll do a similar resolution request to allocate what we spend in fiscal 25 at the end of this fiscal year. And that is the end of my three items.
We've still got one more for the allocation, but at least for that, let's take that.
Oh, I thought I just did the allocation.
27?
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
The third.
they all run together.
All right, so I know that allocation list was completed, House of Records today.
Yes, it was.
And there it is there. Okay, so it's in the packet, but although we don't have it pulled up here. Okay.
That's the resolution.
That's the resolution that was prepared by a bond council that permits us to allocate the $4,617,732 that was spent on appropriate capital projects that relate to capital items, capital projects in the city that belong to the city that are depreciated over long lives. So that's kind of and so there's a sampling of the projects that that funding was drawn from.
I know members may be seeing this list for the first time, the finalized list today, and I know we'll have an opportunity Monday night to question it as well. Any questions about any item you see on there?
Yes, Mr. President, can we go back to your model?
Yes.
Go back to your model view.
Yes. The one pager?
Yes.
So that one pager is designed to look at expenditures of the city out of the different types of fund buckets that the city has.
Yes. So the bond itself,
Yep.
language states that it has to be spent and or what, completed or earmarked? What is the definition?
Yes, so the bond document states that because it's a tax-free borrowing and complies with the IRS regulations, it refers to the IRS regulations that require those spending requirements within that 36-month window. So it goes beyond planning to spend the bond funds. When we issued those bonds, right, we were saying we got these 3 projects and we plan to spend the bond funds on those 3 projects. But the actual spending, right, of those funds is when you allocate the bond funds and draw the money out of that
Right.
bond fund pool.
So in essence, shovel-ready projects in construction, portions complete, and actual paid funds.
Yes,
Okay, so not, okay.
that's the
And that has
impetus
to
for
be
this
done.
whole strategy, right? It's gotta be more than a plan.
So you added multiple buckets to give a explanation of the model that you're utilizing to be able to accommodate the $17 million that cannot be returned.
That is correct.
Okay, so it has to be spent by 2020
December.
March.
March.
Okay.
The bond was issued March
So we have less than a
2023.
year to spend. So the model you have is the definition of the bond allows you the ability to pay for additional capital needs that are either shovel-ready or shall be completed by March 2026.
And paid for.
So you can, and pay for, so you can buy the principal, so you won't be any type of challenges, if you will.
That's exactly
Okay.
right.
And so, and 6 million of it is related to sewer.
Okay, so that's where we want to be real careful because we want to allocate capital projects that relate to the city as a whole and not just the sewer. So that's why we're being very careful with that language. That's why we're moving what we're calling qualified projects that have already been approved in the capital projects fund in that second column. And we're saying, let's take those expenditures that were already done and approved by council and shift those over to the bond fund and pay them out of there because those meet the criteria based on bond council's.
So either way is a list of projects that equate to
Yes.
$17 million. So getting back to because we're going to be actually the allocation, I'll land on this, the performing arts
Yes,
facility. So you stated that, so since, I'm going to utilize some words here now, correct me
okay,
from a accounting standpoint.
okay,
It will be at $10 million that will be earmarked from the capital fund in a separate bucket,
yes.
correct me now, that will be designated to the performing arts.
That's correct. And what
Okay.
we can do with our monthly reporting
Uh-huh.
is report on those performing arts designated funds. And if
Right.
you'll agree that 10 point, we can report on that, have a special column just for that with our
Right.
monthly reporting, so you can see it every time you see a financial report.
Okay. And this is my last one, I promise. So from a protected standpoint, what does the city have to do to protect that earmark versus just putting it in a bucket? And again, another council can come and modify whatever we put in place, of course, after the fact. But will we have to create some type of resolution or document that protects that, requires a certain level of a vote in order to modify that? Or can we maybe need to give a legal team to determine what needs to take place for that?
That might be illegal. I think your designation for the PAC, if you were to approve that budget amendment, would earmark those funds, and the only body that could change that would be this body.
Right.
And this body could choose to add additional funds as it determined to do so. It would be under the direction of council.
Correct. To do that, okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Nobody else could come and steal those funds.
Okay.
without council.
That's all I have
Yes.
for right now. Mr. President.
Some of the questions I've heard tossed around, so first of all, can you just return the bond funds? Just say, you know, look, we don't, changed our mind, we don't need it. Here you go.
So it depends on the structure of the bond document, but when we issued our bonds, it had a early call date of 10 years. So if you wanted to repay this portion, you would have to pay the equivalent of 10 years worth of interest on those funds. And it would be an advance refunding, but you would basically be paying interest over 10 years, which I would
$17
not want.
million.
I would not want to recommend that. But that would be the only way.
You can get interest on it as is.
Yes. I mean, since the bonds have been issued, we have been covering our cost of borrowing with our investments. So we've been fortunate to that end.
We've emphasized the need to spend these funds within a 3-year period, March 2026.
That's right.
What happens if this fails and the bond funds are still unspent by March of 2026? What exactly is the penalty?
Yeah, the IRS doesn't tell you what they're gonna do.
Yeah, it would be subject to an IRS audit or review, and the consequences of that could be to deem the non-taxable bonds to be taxable. Then the bondholders would
So everyone that
take action against the city.
or funded the city would then be subject to, instead of tax-free, 3 years worth of taxes on that. That would affect the city's bond rating in the future, the ability to borrow money in the
I don't know
future.
about that. I think it would affect the bondholders for sure. Any income that they earn from those tax-free bonds would then be taxable. They would seek recourse against the city.
Because that would make them angry. And rightly so. The technical term is that if you know, from the IRS's standpoint, it is a reasonable expectation to spend bond funds in a 3-year window. And when you don't, when there is, and you should be able to spend those funds in that 3-year window and you don't, the IRS can come back and declare those as hedge bonds, which then triggers the taxable element to that, which makes bondholders and the market very unhappy and would not be a recommended course of action from this person.
Thank you. I think Mr. Murphy has asked the other questions I had.
We'll have 4 days to come up with other questions.
If you do have questions, please let me know. Happy to provide answers.
Item 28 will be removed from Monday night, so we'll move to item 29. We've got several first readings for Monday night. Beginning with item 29, ordinance to amend ordinance number 20-2480 to establish voting locations for August election.
Yes, I'm adding 3 new polling locations to have easily accessible and efficient locations for the voters. So the ones that will be added will be the Hoover Met. It is also the Hoover Senior Center, and let me try to find the other one. The Seventh-day, the Birmingham First Seventh-day Adventist Church. Oh, and well, I'm adding 4, and the Birmingham Community Church.
Any questions on the voting location?
Where's the Birmingham Community Church? Chapel.
Higher than. Thank you for your work on it, Ms. Dixon. I know that's a Herculean task to pull that together.
Currently, I'm working for polling pads for Shelby County. We have them for Jefferson County, and I'm trying to diligently work on that for Shelby.
Good work on that. Thank you. Item 30, Ms. Cornett, is first reading for an ordinance to provide for levying of municipal taxes. Annual event, I believe.
Yes, this is just the annual tax levy that we do every year so that we can collect property taxes.
Any questions on the collection of property taxes? Okay, we'll have a first reading on item 31, an ordinance to amend the municipal code for a non-exclusive franchise agreement with MCI Metro. Mr. Cope will be here, I assume, on Monday night. Should anyone have any questions about that?
And I can give a little bit of an update. This is just amending it, and it's changing it from corporation to LLC, and then changing the address of where the document will be sent.
Item 32, Mr. Reeves, is an ordinance authorizing the transfer of real property to the city of Hoover Channel.
Yes, sir. This one is to approve a donation of city property. It's called Track 1, associated with the Little Valleydale project. It's adjacent to Valleydale Road, in front of the PSC. This property is 0.323 acres.
Questions on that item? Item 33 is a related item.
Yes, sir. This one is actually for the Big Valleydale project. It's on the other end of town. So this one is for Track 44 and 63B. We're donating this to Shelby County for the construction of the project. Track 44, which is at Veterans Park, is 6.137 acres. And Track 63B is at the intersection of Biltmore Drive and Aaron Center Parkway, is 0.451 acres.
Questions on that item? Martin, got 3, I believe. Beginning with 34, resolution granting petition use approval for event party space at Swiney facilities.
Yes, this is for an event space in the shopping center directly across Highway 31 from our present location. This particular item was heard by the Planning Commission last month, and it comes to you with a positive recommendation with conditions. And those conditions are as follows. 1, that a new handicap accessible van parking space be placed in front of the facility with ADA compliant route to the subject unit. Secondly, that the business complies with all building code requirements for a facility with a proposed occupancy load, which is approximately 125. Number 3, the business shall operate within the following hours, and those are listed, you have them on the overhead. Closing at 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 1 a.m. Friday and Saturday, and midnight on Sunday. And lastly, the business shall obtain a certificate of occupancy and a business license prior to opening.
Go back to the map, please, Mr.
The address that is highlighted there is the restaurant the gentleman currently owns. The actual event space would be around on the west side, so just around the curve there before you get to the advanced auto parts.
We're talking about a wedding venue, event space, but what is it?
As it was explained to us in the Planning Commission, he has several clients, customers to his restaurant that have inquired about having a larger dining space, facility dedicated for family events and just large dinner gatherings. So that's strictly what the space would be used for.
And what's the restaurant?
Ooh.
I should know it.
I do not have that in front of me right offhand, but serves Indian cuisine.
Okay. Any other questions about it? Item 35, Mr. Martin, is an ordinance changes zoning at 2208 Chapel Road from R1 to P2.
Yes, sir. This particular property currently has split zoning. The front half of it is E2 zoning district. The back half is R1 single family residential. The long-term plan for the owners is to subdivide this tract from one parcel into 2 parcels and build a single-family residence on each of the 2 parcels. Prior to taking this before the Planning Commission for subdivision, our recommendation was that the property be rezoned to where one zoning district covers the entire site. Our recommendation was the E2 zoning district, the lesser of the dense zoning districts available. They agreed and applied for the E2 designation to be applied to the entire property. So this comes with a positive recommendation from our office as well as the Planning Commission, as it will resolve a split zoning across a single tract.
That's a parcel we annexed in the last year or so, isn't it?
No, sir, this one's been in the city for quite some time. We annexed some property further east.
Okay, toward the farm.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
This one was recently cleared. There's been a lot of buzz about some of the antique vehicles that were found once the nature was removed from the premises. But yeah, the long-term vision there is to build 2 residential homes. The E2 will accommodate that.
Any other questions, Mr. Martin? Finally, 36 is for swimming pool changes.
All right, last but not least, we had several inquiries as to whether or not we should take a look at our swimming pool design, private swimming pools on residential properties in particular. Our current zoning ordinance divides swimming pools into 2 classifications, either above ground, which include completely or partially above ground pools, and those that are in ground, below grade. As part of that request, I went and looked at what I would consider 8 peer cities across this and 2 other metropolitan areas, just to get an idea of how many of other cities that are positioned similarly from a population standpoint and a geography standpoint have those different classifications. The key difference is in our current code, for any pool that is partially or wholly above grade, there's a 25-foot setback from all property lines. And in examining those 8 sister cities, if you will, one, I could find no differentiation between how they treat in-ground or below-grade pools. And what I also found was that the setback requirements in those other cities were either 10 feet or in some cases less. So to modify this section of the ordinance, not only to account for what we're clearly seeing as market trends, new design elements, there's a lot of desire for infinity type pools, the edgeless pools that do have above grade components. And looking at how other comparable cities have treated this particular amendment would bring us more in line with what those other cities do and how they are treating pools. So in essence, what the long and short here, we're eliminating the larger setback requirements for above ground pools. They are to be treated the same as in-ground below grade. So there's a 10-foot setback instead of the 25-foot setback. And of course, any accessory structures, pool equipment and the like, that is addressed elsewhere in our accessory structures section. So the key differential here is bringing any kind of above ground or partially above grade pools in line with the same setback criteria as in ground.
We'll have 2 weeks to review that prior to voting. Any questions for Mr. Martin? Thank you for your work on that. It's a big deal. All right, that brings us to the end. We'll see you Monday. Let's go around.